Hollywood Hills. The clock strikes 2 a.m. One of the mansions sits in darkness, totally absent of light, blending into the night. Inside, a fortune lies waiting. Millions of dollars in jewelry, art, and cash. There are masked figures approaching the house. But they aren't professional robbers. They completely ignore alarm systems or cameras. They are just high school students looking for a key under the doormat. And the terrifying part is, the key is actually there. They aren't desperate types who need money. They are only there to steal the lifestyle they envy. This is the story of how a group of bored teenagers robbed the most famous people in the world and used their mansions like a private shopping mall. Los Angeles, the city of dreams, fame, and excess. Especially in the late 2000s, celebrity culture was at its absolute peak. Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Orlando Bloom. Thanks to the paparazzi, we knew exactly where they were, what they were doing moment by moment. It was easy to guess when they weren't home. While everyone watched these people with admiration, a small group of teenagers in the suburbs of Calabasas watched with jealousy. They were so envious while watching that fame, they wanted to possess it. They started this crime wave not because they were poor, but because they couldn't be them. This was nothing more than boredom, stupid vanity, and an obsession with brands. Today, on the Case Archive, we are examining the weirdest heist in Hollywood history. We will talk about how a group of youngsters walked into Hollywood Hills mansions comfortably without any equipment, how they stole $3 million, and why it took the police so long to catch them. Every criminal gang needs a leader. Rachel Lee is the leader in our file. To those who knew her, she was the brand and fashion-obsessed Queen Bee. She was overly controlling, quiet, and her focus was elsewhere. Designer brands. She didn't want a Chanel bag. She wanted Paris Hilton's Chanel bag. The other gang member, Nick Prugo. Nick was an outcast among his peers. He was just a shy kid who wanted to be part of a friend group. He met Rachel at Indian Hills High School. Could he finally have the friend group he wanted? He thought he had finally taken the first step on the road to popularity. Because of her desires, Rachel had incredible vision. Nick, due to his loneliness, had the courage to execute this vision. Committing crimes started slowly for them. In wealthy neighborhoods, the rich were relaxed. They didn't lock their cars. There was cash and credit cards in their glove compartments. These were easy crimes to commit. Besides being simple, it was very exciting. But Rachel wasn't going to settle for this. As I said, unlocked cars were easy. One night she thought about it and asked Nick this question. I wonder where Paris Hilton lives. You might think this is a joke. But in 2008, thanks to the paparazzi, accessing information like this was very easy. Privacy wasn't really cared about back then. October 2008. They immediately went online, looked up Paris Hilton, and learned she was at an event in Las Vegas. They went straight to the Hollywood Hills. They were anxious on the way. They didn't know what they would encounter. They expected armed guards, massive gates, guard dogs. But what they found was a key sitting under the doormat. Let me state that again. You are going to the house of one of the most famous women in the world. There is no sign of a guard, and the keys are under the mat. They walked right in. They didn't act like robbers. This was like a shopping tour for them. They went directly to the dressing room, which was 70 square meters. Without rushing at all, they left with cash, designer bras, and a bottle of vodka. Without trashing the house, without taking everything. They only took what they could wear and use themselves. Their thought was not to be noticed. Think about it. If one of your hundreds of bags went missing, would you notice? You would probably think it was lost and continue with your life. It happened just as they thought. Paris Hilton didn't even notice. She had no idea she had been robbed. Because of this, their courage hit the ceiling. They robbed Paris Hilton's house exactly 5 times. Yes, 5 times. They literally used her house like a mall they visited once a month. Success can sometimes be dangerous. It can take your mind off things. Rachel started to expand the team. Alexis Nyers, Courtney Ames, and Diana Tamayo were added to the crew. That Bonnie and Clyde duo had now turned into a gang, the Bling Ring. The work seemed too easy and they weren't satisfied. They used Google Earth just to discover open windows or weak points on the roofs of mansions. They used Twitter to learn when and where celebrities were. They robbed Audrina Patridge on Oscar night. They stole Rachel Bilson's entire vintage collection. They also entered the home of Brian Austin Green and Megan Fox. They didn't stop. They stole a gun belonging to Brian Austin Green, a gun that was apparently important to Nick Prugo. But the biggest score was Orlando Bloom. Rachel Lee was obsessed with Bloom's girlfriend. She wanted her lingerie. They cut the security wires and entered Bloom's house. And they found a hidden, extremely luxurious watch collection. Rolexes, Patek Philippe's. The value of the watches they took was over $500,000. They were no longer a group of students. They had become criminals, but they were still going to school. The robberies started to get out of control. They began using the things they stole in their daily lives. They had become the coolest group in school, but still, they didn't stop. Rachel had one final wish, the holy grail of 2000's celebrity culture, Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay was Rachel's idol. In August 2009, they entered Lohan's villa. They stole clothes and jewelry worth $130,000. But this would be their end. Unlike Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan noticed the situation immediately. And now, the police were under incredible pressure and had to take action. But their real mistake wasn't Lindsay Lohan. It was Audrina Patridge. As always, they had ignored the security cameras. However, Audrina didn't just give the tape to the police. She posted the video on her own website. Even though the footage was blurry, a group of teenagers hanging out as if they were on a walk with bags in their hands was visible, and someone recognized them. An anonymous tip went to the police, Nick Prugo. The police immediately pulled Nick in for questioning, and there was no trace left of Nick's courage. He confessed everything. He told on every friend, every house they entered, everything they took. What happened next was a media circus of the kind only Hollywood could produce. Police raided the homes of the entire crew. In every raid, they reached the things they were looking for: watches, jewelry, clothes. But the crew didn't act like Nick. They acted like they were on the red carpet. Alexis Nyers seemed like she was filming a reality show during her trial. She even gained fame when she argued with a journalist, not about the robberies, but about the shoes she wore to court. "Nancy Joe, this is Alexis Nyers calling. I'm wearing $29 little Louboutins." This turned into an internet meme. The gang leader, Rachel, was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Nick got 2 years. The others were out on probation. But they were still not satisfied. As I said at the beginning, they wanted fame, and they got what they wanted. Movies were made about them, books were written. They were now just like the celebrities they followed. The Bling Ring wasn't a sophisticated criminal organization. It was a mirror. It represented a generation obsessed with having it all without working. It showed that the barrier between a fan and a star is much thinner than we think, sometimes just as thin as an unlocked door. Today, with Instagram and TikTok, celebrities share their lives even more. Location tags, house tours, instant updates. The Bling Ring proved that oversharing can be dangerous. But have we learned our lesson? Or are we all just leaving the key under the doormat? This is the Case Archive. Lock your doors and keep your secrets safe.